Have you heard of KFC's new pizza thing?
The what?
Yeah, it's a piece of chicken with like pizza ingredients on top. They put like marinara sauce and cheese and pepperoni. It looks gross to me, but I hadn't tasted it, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, I've had chicken with marinara and cheese on it.
Yeah, I mean, the sauce part kind of makes sense because you could dip. Some people would dip like I guess chicken and marinara.
Welcome to Barb City. I'm Eric.
Kevin.
I think this is what, episode 15?
16.
Yep.
16.
Woo!
We made the big hurdle. That was the episode I was waiting since episode 1. I was like, if we make it to 16, I know we're good. And we did it.
Yeah.
Not really, but I'm being silly. I actually didn't really have an episode in mind, really, that had a hurdle for me. I guess episode 18,463. That's my hurdle.
All right, so we're 50, 60.
Yeah, we got a while to go.
We're retirement age anyways at the time we're done with it. It's been, 3 decades.
Probably longer than that.
It was over 3. Yeah, because, we stopped it when I was 60. It'd be 3 decades because we started it last year. So,
yeah. No, I plan on dying in front of the microphone. I'm not retiring.
Yeah, your listeners are going to sit here and just be listeners. And all of a sudden, you're going to hear them on the mic.
I'm literally going to die on the podcast.
And I'll finish up the episode, then go to his house, computer, call the cops, the ambulance. Say, hey, my podcast coworker passed away. Grab his computer, finish the episode up, and it'll be the last episode with Kevin.
Nope. Have to replace me with someone younger.
Yeah. I might have 2 younger people. That way, when I die on the podcast, they just have it.
Then they just take over. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made an Instagram account for the podcast, and I was trying to make one of those audiogram things where they take a snippet of the audio and it's not the best, but but at least I started something. So you probably have to give me a few more weeks and I'll get a little better at it. So that was my first attempt to make one of those.
Did you make it? What's the Instagram?
It's just barf underscore city underscore podcast.
So it's barf underscore city
underscore podcast.
Underscore podcast. Okay.
Yep.
That's a lot of underscores.
Yeah. Well, Barf City was already taken, and there was a bunch of different versions of it. So I was like, well, I'll do underscore barf underscore city, and that was already taken. So I was like, well, how about underscore podcast afterward? And I finally got that one. So I was like, okay, I'll do that.
I wonder what the other barf cities are.
I have no idea. So I think they look like I didn't look at the accounts, but based on the quick glance of their profile picture that was popping up, they look like just standard Instagram accounts. Like a lot of people just have Instagram accounts where they just watch reels and stuff like that. They're not really posting anything on there. So, and that's kind of what most of them look like.
So it's Barf City on Spotify, Barf City on YouTube, and Barf underscore city underscore podcast on Instagram.
Yep. I know all the inconsistency. Yeah. That's all right. That's what links are for. So
Twitter, Facebook page. Oh, yeah. We're moving on up in the world.
I know, right? You got a new cover art, got an Instagram account. Wow, we're getting crazy.
Oh yeah.
Might make a TikTok later, but I started with Instagram because I'm just more familiar with it. So
Yeah, don't get me in line. I am not, knowledgeable on TikTok.
yeah,
I know how to watch all my videos and share to friends and all that stuff, but
yeah.
I even know how to
I
download videos.
I haven't even log. I don't. My account may have been deleted by now due to inactivity. I don't know. I made a TikTok account like, geez, that was a long time ago. Like probably over 4 years ago, something like that. So a good 5 years ago, and yeah, I actually used to make memes on there. That was back when I was trying to attempt to create my own memes, and none of them were successful. So I kind of just stopped logging in after one day and never really got back on there. So, mm. But yeah,
So
exciting.
I'm sure you probably don't follow anything on boxing or anything like that, do you?
Like unboxing different stuff.
Not like boxing.
Oh, boxing. I thought you said
Yeah.
unboxing. Oh no, no. I mean, no. I'm not very familiar with the sport. Yeah, but I understand how the sport works. Yeah.
So apparently, Jake Paul has challenged Mike Tyson to a boxing match.
How old is Mike Tyson?
He's like 57.
Oh, okay. I figured he's older than that. That's not too bad.
I can't remember. I'd have to look.
My stomach's doing something weird.
So stop being weird.
Okay, let me just turn my weird meter off.
Yeah, he's 57 years old.
Oh, okay. So he's almost 60. I guess it sounds about right. So.
Yeah, but him and Logan Paul are going to face each other, I guess. Not Logan, Jake Paul. I'll get it right between the Pauls. I guess it's going to be shown on Netflix.
Really?
Yeah, July 20th, live on Netflix at the AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson.
I'll make sure to miss that.
Well, I'm intrigued because, like, Mike has had a hell of a career in boxing. And then here's Jake Paul, who's only had, I think, 9 fights.
Yeah.
And he's 9 or 10. He's lost only one. But the one person he lost to was an actual boxer. So,
yeah. So we'll see how this goes. Yeah.
Yeah. This should be entertaining, at least.
Oh, my goodness.
I don't know. I mean, Jake might be taking it serious and training real hard for it. He might pull out of it. But, I mean, he is the 57-year-old Mike Tyson. He's not in his prime anymore.
Yeah.
But I guarantee that motherfucker probably still hit like a fucking freight train.
Yeah.
So I might have to watch it, or at least watch the clips of it afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, listeners, if you're on YouTube, put down in the comment section what you think is going to happen. If you follow that kind of stuff. Think Little Paul's going to bring out a win on the older bull, or think Mike Tyson's going to just bash his fucking head in?
It would be funny if he did that.
I mean, he's already bitten a dude's ear off in the boxing ring, so I mean, and that's when he was fresh, young in the job. I mean, now 57-year-old, what the hell does he have left? He's already on his way out of things. So I don't know.
Have you heard of KFC's new pizza thing?
The what?
Yeah, it's a piece of chicken with like pizza ingredients on top. They put like marinara sauce and cheese and pepperoni. It looks gross to me, but I hadn't tasted it, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, I've had chicken with marinara and cheese on it.
Yeah, I mean, the sauce part kind of makes sense because you could dip. Some people would dip like I guess chicken and marinara, but like I don't know, like I feel like I don't know, like maybe they would let it. Do they make it to order or does it sit there for? I don't know.
Yeah, because the marinara is probably going to be sitting in this metal tray that's in a heater to keep it heated. And as it gets low, they just probably add more to it.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if it just even looking at the professional pictures don't look appetizing to me. So, but that's just me. But I haven't really heard anyone's opinion on it, but I've seen a lot of advertisements for it. So I was like,
Also, I noticed, so me and the wife was trying to figure out what to eat the other day. And I've noticed pretty much every fast food place is now, except for like Sonic and like one other, has a fucking fish sandwich now.
Is it Lent season?
I don't know.
Because I know that a lot of fast food places will do that during Lent because Catholics, right? Because it caters to that audience. So. I used when I was in my early 20s and I was a housekeeper. A lady I used to work with, she was Catholic, and we went to that was not at quite as many fast food places had fish sandwiches except for maybe like Arby's or whatever. But like McDonald's had the Filet-O-Fish like for only like $1 or something like that during that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went to McDonald's like almost like every day so she could eat fish.
Okay, so that's something I'm not really familiar about. What is that season of?
I mean, I don't know the specifics, but I think it has something to do with the death and resurrection of Jesus. Like they do it up until like Easter, I think, and then so it's kind of a way to commemorate. I think that I'm not super familiar with the specifics though, but it has something to do with that. So I don't know. I don't know why only the fish thing. I guess it's a fasting thing. Like they're trying to cut out other meat except for fish. So.
So what's the season called?
Lent.
Lint?
I think that's how you spell it. I don't know.
That's how you spell regular Lent.
Yeah, it might be spelled differently. I don't know. But yeah.
No, they put an E. Okay.
I mean, I've never been Catholic, so I don't know much about it.
So Lent is a 40-day season of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving that begins on Ash Wednesday and ends at sundown on Holy Thursday. It's a period of preparation to celebrate the Lord's resurrection at Easter. You were correct on that part. During Lent, we seek the Lord's Prayer by reading sacred scripture. We serve by giving alms, and we practice self-control through fasting. We are called not only to abstain from luxuries during Lent, but to a true inner conversation of heart as we seek to follow Christ's will more faithfully. So what, y'all cheese on? Okay, we recall the waters of baptism in which we were also baptized in Christ's death, died to sin and evil, began new life in Christ. But where does the fish come in? I'm curious.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it's just a fasting thing. So instead of eating,
that means they only fast certain foods. The thing is, it says given to sustain from luxury. Going to freaking McDonald's for a $1 sandwich is a fucking luxury, people.
Well, I would argue that most people. Well, I guess it depends on the person. Someone might like the Filet-O-Fish more, but I mean, most people would probably rather have like a burger or something over the Filet-O-Fish. So they feel like it's
the fish sandwiches nowadays with most of these restaurants like an Arby's and stuff. They're freaking good.
Yeah, I don't.
The luxury of it is like now they were saying they have to go only to fresh markets or fish it themselves. That's not a luxury as much. But getting to be able to get in your car and drive to a fast food place and
I think it's just more about the actual eating part. So
being catered to someone else making your food. That's a luxury. Also, there's a lot of other stuff in that fish sandwich.
Well, I don't think there's other kind of meats in there though. I'm pretty sure the only meat in there is fish. So
yeah, only meat's fish. But you got a lot of bread. You got pickles.
Yeah. Well, it's not about the bread. It's just I think it's just meat wise. So they only eat fish. So
it's because I don't think is Jesus ate other than things than fish.
Right.
The only thing in the scripture about fish is when he turned, made all that fish and bread for people. Turned 2 fish into whatever,
Yeah, there's actually 2 stories where that happened. One where they had one where they have 5 baskets left over after everybody eats, and then one where there's 12 baskets left over. So there's actually 2 different stories that actually happens. So one is in Luke, and then either that or it's one story and it's a contradiction, but it could just be 2 different stories. So, and then one is in Matthew, I think, the book of Matthew.
Well, thing is, the Bible would have been written by them so long later. Maybe they just forgot how much fish was.
Well, I have my opinions on the whole thing, but I'll stay quiet about it.
Well, it's like, do you remember how much fish was left over after that feast that Jesus, created for us? I think it was 12. Nah, I think it was like 5, man.
Screw it. No. This happened in 2 different occasions. Yeah.
Hey, I kind of want to be the fly on the wall back then. Well, fly on the cave, as you used to say. Kind of curious. I'm like, people when they wrote the Bible, I want to be the fly on the wall. Just, listen to that conversations.
Yeah.
Because they were all friends. So I'm curious, I'm like, did one start writing and the other one decided to follow? Or did they all like, you know what? We'll mutually agree to write our own sections of this book. We'll put it together, make it the Bible, the Word of Jesus. Like, how did that all come up? Wow.
Well, the people who wrote Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John probably never actually knew each other. So they probably just were written at different times, according to Bible scholars. So, but Mark was most likely written first, even though it's the second book in the Bible. It was probably the first one written, then Matthew, then probably Luke, and then John was probably written probably way past 100 AD, so or BC or BC.
Be after Christ.
Yeah.
So A's.
Yeah, AD is the old version, and then BC is the new version, because it'd be BCE would be before Common Era, and then BC is Common, or CE. I'm sorry, CE is Common Era. So, but of course, the old way would have been BC and then AD. So.
But yeah, because it's like, well, if those guys never knew each other and they weren't there for Jesus, like, how do they know these stories?
Yeah. Well, I could see Mark, because Mark was most likely if it was the first one written, and it was written I think they said obviously they don't know the exact time, but they said most likely based on the writing style and the linguistics of everything, it was probably written around 50 to 60 AD or CE. And theoretically, if Jesus actually died somewhere around 30 AD, then that's only 30 years later. So that's not that far away. So
also depends how old he was when he wrote it, because if he was 30 something years old, he wrote it.
Right, and that would depend on his age of when he, he doesn't even claim he witnessed these things. He just says he seems to know about them. But if he did witness them, it's how old was he when he witnessed them? So versus when he's writing them. So, because that would be if I wrote a book in my 60s about my 30s. I'd have a bit of a tough time kind of remembering every detail of what happened in my 30s. So.
Yeah. So it's well, we'll get into this, I guess. Unless, so it makes it believe like. How
But
do we
you know,
know?
when God's involved, He can let it all work out. So
But the thing is, to have faith in the Bible, in my opinion, is to more have faith in man than God.
yeah.
Because these guys weren't around. They just apparently know the stories. Or what if it turns out this was just meant to be a good, long, actual, like, fairy tale story these guys were writing? Like,
Yeah.
what are people going to do if that was ever found out?
Yeah. For
'Cause
anyone who's interested in the history of the New Testament, I strongly recommend you listen to the podcast "Misquoting Jesus" by Professor Bart Ehrman. He's actually an atheist, but he's a Bible scholar who mostly studies the New Testament. He talks about the four Gospels all the time and their history of them and stuff like that. So anyone who's interested, he can go into a lot more detail.
So if you want to just straight, like, study view instead of a religious view of it.
Yeah, he used to be a Christian, but he left Christianity back in like the late '80s, early '90s. I can't remember when it was, but yeah. So now he's an atheist.
Yeah. It's just. And who wrote do they even know who wrote the Old Testament?
Well, the Old Testament is also a collection of a bunch of books. No one knows exactly who wrote the first 5 books, but there are definitely scholar points to them. I mean, the Book of Genesis was probably just taken. They took a collection of Mesopotamian, the religion, the ancient religion of like the Assyrians, Babylonians, and the Canaanites, and all that stuff, and it kind of got mixed into one book, and it probably got changed later on by like the Judaites, because the Judaites aren't quite the same as the Israelites. A lot of people think they're the same, but if you study the history of the kingdom of Judah versus the kingdom of Israel, they're not quite the same people. They're kind of two different people that later got merged into one population, and then that's why later on they started being referred to as the Jews instead of Israelites. And but yeah, so that's probably where the Book of Genesis came from, a collection with a bunch of changes later on. Because originally they seem to worship the god El, which was a Canaanite god, one of the Canaanite gods. But then later on they started worshiping, somehow it kind of just pops out of nowhere. They suddenly start worshiping the god Yeshua, or not Yeshua, Yahweh. Yeshua is Jesus. They worship the god Yahweh, which was another Canaanite god. And so for some reason they switched, and it kind of replaced the god of El, and that's the god where the god of the Bible comes from, is Yahweh. So it's very interesting.
Very intriguing.
Yeah, so Yahweh, the god of the Bible, was essentially just a Canaanite god, which was probably just a different version of like an ancient like Babylonian god, so, or Assyrian maybe. So,
So
yeah.
like, so it's people that went from worshiping multiple gods to deciding they picked a favorite.
Right. And there's actually quite, even in the Bible, the old first 5 books in the Bible, especially the book of Genesis, but you could even read like First and Second Samuel, First and Second Kings, and there's actually quite of hints and clues here that the early Israelites were actually probably still polytheistic during this time, and a lot of them still worship the god of. A lot of Christians call him Baal, but I think it's actually pronounced Baal. Baal, I think that's how you say it. And of course, there's a variety of different other gods, but later on, somehow it got changed to, probably from the Judaites, decided they wanted to be more of a monotheistic, and somehow the god Yahweh got selected as the main god, and that's when they probably went back and made some changes with some of the writings. Most of the Bible in the Old Testament was probably not even written until after the Jews got captured by Babylon, when they were in captivity. So that's when they actually started putting most of it together. I'm sure they had some writings and some text. I won't argue with that, but it probably wasn't all formatted the way it is today yet until that time. That's when they went back and started kind of formatting it into one whole, the Torah, and then of course the first. Then you got the book of Joshua, First and Second Samuel, First and Second. Actually, First and Second Samuel and First and Second Kings were originally just one book. Later on, when they started translating it right before the Middle Ages, I think it was, for some reason they decided to split that into two books. I have no idea why, but originally it was just Samuel and Kings. So, but yeah, interesting. I mean, the Bible has exchanged hands like hundreds of times. So,
and each time it gets slightly altered.
yeah, pretty much. But yeah, probably started out as like an Israelite book, or some of the texts were probably mostly Israelite. And then when the Judaites got a hold of it, they changed it more to their liking. So,
Which all this would have been before Christ.
right. This would have been like probably a good 500-600 years before Jesus was even born. So,
Now,
ow, crap. Oh, that hurt.
what'd you do?
I was trying to pop my finger and it friggin' hurt so bad. Oh my god. But yeah. So I was watching a British person. He was a British person. I guess a Brit, whatever you call him. He was trying a Southern food, from the United States for the first time, and he liked most of it, and but like he tried, one of the things he tried was grits, and I always forget that grits is technically a Southern food thing because I actually don't really care for grits that much. So I was curious, are there any Southern food? Me and Eric, we both live in the South, so like most people would probably assume that we just love all Southern food, but I'm curious, is there any Southern food you don't like?
I mean, for me, when it comes to food, it's kind of depends on how it's made. Like, I like most foods. It's just if it's made crappy, I'm not gonna like it.
Yeah.
Well, there's things that would be considered a Southern food that I didn't like for the longest time, and I've started somewhat liking it. But also, I've been finally going to, with having my own money and job and life, whatever,
It's about time.
going to places where they're a little bit better at cooking that stuff
Yeah.
than just having it at, a friend's house or something. And maybe it's just a side dish that their parents make that's just not their favorite, that's not their best side dish or whatever.
Yeah.
And they just make it because it's cheap and easy.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of collard greens.
Yeah, I'll give you that one.
Sauerkraut, I'm really not the biggest fan of.
Is sauerkraut Southern?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I never would have thought of that as that.
I've never seen it in a restaurant when I was up north. Most canned food stuff, or not canned food, but jarred food, like pickled stuff, are mostly Southern. Except for I think there's a few things up north they pickle, but I'm trying to think what's specifically a northern pickled food. It's kind of one of those things you have to pull up a list to really dawn on you.
Yeah. Yeah, I just pulled one up. I'm seeing if any of them jump out at me that I don't care for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't really care for hush puppies that much. Just too much bread.
I love hush puppies when they're made right.
Yeah.
But I also love bread.
Yeah, it's also fair for people that aren't familiar with the South. It's also fair. Some of these foods can vary from state to state. Like, we live in Arkansas, so Arkansas might do some of these foods a little differently than if you went to like Louisiana or something, you know. So it's fair to say that. So if you don't like it in one state, you might like it in another state. So
Yeah, that's a really big thing about the South is we all have similar foods. We're all the same thing, but judging by where you get it in the state and what state you get it in will determine how good it is sometimes or how bad it is.
They got fried catfish in here. Yeah, I don't care for that. Of course, grits. Don't like grits.
It's also a thing like American Asian food.
Yeah.
Can dramatically depend on where it's at in the Arkansas because, like, back home up the northeast part of Arkansas where I'm from, well, technically I'm from here, but where I grew up was there. But their coconut shrimp is actually a coconut glaze, so it's like a sticky, thick glaze that actually tastes like a sweet coconut. Whereas the ones here that I get, because I was like, oh yeah, this one, because not every Chinese food restaurant has coconut shrimp, and I fucking love coconut shrimp. But I was like, oh yeah, there's two of them that have it here. Great, I have my options between these two. Either way I go, whether but I don't like them here because they're almost. I don't know what they do with it. It's almost like it's almost the same consistency as mayo, and it almost tastes like mayo. It's almost like they use mayo.
Oh wow!
It's just a glump of thick. It's not the greatest. It doesn't even taste like coconut at all. Well, the other one, the one back home, is a lot better. It's more of a syrup glaze than just a glump of whatever this shit is they have here.
Yeah.
So even something as simple as Chinese, something as simple as coconut shrimp can vary so dramatically within 4 hours. Because where I'm from is only like 3.5 to 4 hours away. And it can vary that dramatically.
Yeah.
And it's the same way with gas station food and all that stuff too. But I think that's from my experience though, that's in every state, every country. Like when I was over in Japan, the stuff I'd get in Okinawa, sometimes a lot of times some of the stuff wasn't as good as what I got in Tokyo and vice versa. So there's certain foods over in Okinawa that I prefer from them over in Okinawa making it than I prefer them in Japan making it, in Tokyo, I mean.
Excuse me. Yeah.
So
I mean, heck, I would even argue that like fast food places, like going to one and then like it might be like, let's say you go to the McDonald's down this street or whatever, and then I go to the other McDonald's down that street. Even that can make a difference for me because like, the way they do things there is, those little changes can make a big difference. Like how long they leave stuff out for, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, a lot of it mainly varies because of the people who cook it.
Yeah. I mean, because some people might think, oh, well, it's all cooked the same. I'm like, well, yeah, technically, but, you can do little things like that that can make a difference. You leave something out for like, 2 minutes longer than like the other restaurant would, where they would throw that kind of stuff away when it sat out that long. That can make a big difference. So, and taste.
Well, at my McDonald's I worked at when I was 18, there was a chef there, he was an older cook.
Yeah.
Well, there's people that would only come in on his shift because they said he made the burgers better than any of the rest of us.
All right.
The location itself between different chefs. So even a restaurant itself can vary depending on who's on duty.
Yeah. Management can also make a difference too on how particular they want things to be done. Some managers may not give a crap, and some, are, more particular. So that can make a difference. So.
Yeah, so
I've never heard of this as a Southern food. It says instant chili mac, where they mix macaroni and cheese with chili. Never heard of that in my entire life.
chili mac.
Yeah, never heard of it.
I didn't
Doesn't
know.
look
I
like.
didn't think it was Southern food because I know people up north eat it too. At least I could have
Yeah,
swore.
it might be more of a. It looks like a Midwestern thing to me, but so it might be a mix of South. Midwest food is often kind of a mix of South and North. So
Yeah.
but this page claims it's Southern, but
I don't like chili mac, so
it doesn't look like something I would like. But I don't really like macaroni and cheese that much. So
neither do I. So if it's a Southern thing, then well, there's a Southern thing that Southern guys don't like.
yeah, I'm sure there's probably plenty of Southern food I don't like. I'm just haven't really thought about it. But yeah, grits is always the one that really stands out to me. Like a lot of people always, talk. A lot of Southerners are like, "Oh, grits." Even some of my own family members are like, "You don't like grits?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, it tastes like I'm chewing on wet sand or something. I don't really know how to explain it.
But for me, grits have to have a really good sauce.
Yeah, some Southerners like it more like savory, like where they want like cheese and stuff like that in it. And then some of them like it more sweet, where they want like sugar and stuff like that in it. So me, I've tried both, and I don't care for either. So I think it might be a texture thing for me. So
Could be.
I'm not sure. I haven't eaten enough of it to really compare and contrast. So, but I've eaten
Well,
enough to know I don't like it.
just a couple days ago from the Front Street Grill,
Yeah.
and they done a cheese sauce, like this rich, like seafoody cheese sauce to pour over it and just let it soak.
Yeah.
And it had bacon, shrimp, and scallops. Freaking good. Now I can say that their grits was very. You could
Excuse me. Jeez.
But the flavor of everything else kind of matched it.
Yeah. It's like, well, we'll make this taste good. We'll put a pound of cheese, some bacon, everything else in between, try to drown out that nastiness.
Because grits is like oatmeal or malto meal. I mean, it has no really base taste.
Yeah.
Just like rice.
Well, I like rice though.
But you like plain rice.
I've eaten plain white rice. It is kind of bland. I would put like a little bit of salt and butter on it, but like I don't need a ton for it to taste good, like I would with like someone would do with grits. So like I just a little bit, and I'm like, tastes good to me. So like otherwise with grits, like if I put just a little bit of salt and butter on it, I still wouldn't want to eat it. So
my cousin, she's a vegetarian.
Yeah.
And she's been that way for years, even before vegetarianism was a big popular thing. She just never liked meat. And I always I've always made the joke about her having kids, the fact she doesn't like meat. But she would, because she didn't, we'd have to make, special biscotti for her because she didn't have one with meat in it.
Yeah.
Which got me into this thing where you just boil regular, just spaghetti noodles by itself. Don't put no sauce on it. You just put butter and sugar on it.
Yeah.
Biscotti is delicious.
I don't like spaghetti without meat.
Well, you probably would if it's a sweeter biscotti.
I doubt it. I will say there was one time my former sister-in-law, I guess, she made spaghetti one time because she was like, "Oh, do you want lunch?" And I was just like, I didn't know what the heck she was making, but so I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." And she brought spaghetti, and it was just like she literally just took noodles and dumped like a can of like plain tomato sauce just on top. But I don't know what she did to it. I don't know if she did something to the noodles or what, but like for some reason it tasted really good to me. I was like, I think this is the first time in my life I've ever had meat without like or spaghetti without meat in it that I actually like. So, and I've tried many times after that. I was like, oh, to eat it without meat, and like, yep, still don't like it. I don't know. There was just that one time for some reason I liked it. So,
next time you cook you a little bit of spaghetti and try some butter and sugar. See what you think.
yeah.
And if you like butter noodles and sugar,
I'm not the biggest sugar
anything.
fanatic, but I mean, I like butter.
And you could probably do it with just other types of noodles. You probably do it with macaroni noodles. I mean, they're all the same.
I don't like macaroni noodles as much, actually.
The thing is, the same type of noodle as the spaghetti noodle. They're made out of the same thing.
I know, but the texture's different.
No, it's not. Not when you boil it.
Yeah, it is. The shape's different. So it makes the texture different.
Shapes do not make the texture different.
It is. Even like I can't stand freaking what is that called? Lasagna noodles. They're gross. But yet I like spaghetti noodles.
You're just fucking weird as fuck then.
Then why would they make different shapes for different types of pasta then if it didn't matter? They could just throw it together and then there you go.
Because it would be the same thing. The shapes turned into something different.
So it does matter.
It matters to what the meal's called, but it doesn't matter to the flavor or texture because it's the exact same texture and the exact same flavor.
Actually, the ingredients of lasagna is quite a bit different than the ingredients of spaghetti.
I'm talking about the freaking noodle themselves.
Oh, I can't stand them. They're gross.
You know, when I see you tomorrow, I'm going to kick you right in your fucking teeth.
No, you're not.
Nah, probably not. Too lazy. Nah, I'm not. Did you hear? I don't know if I told you or if I said it on the podcast. That made me think. So there's apparently a dude that went to jail for killing a dude because him and the dude got into an argument over, I think it was if Goku and Superman who would be who. And the guy disagreed with him and he fucking killed him.
Sorry, that's not funny.
Like, what the fuck, dude? You literally killed a dude over.
He took that argument seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just fictional fucking characters.
Well, which side was he on? Was he on Superman's side or Goku's side?
I can't remember. I'd have to look into the story again.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember. I know it was Goku versus someone.
Oh, so it wasn't versus Superman.
I can't remember the whole story because it was told to me. I didn't look into it.
Okay. I do know that's a pretty big debate that a lot of people will do. They'll do Superman versus Goku. Which I feel like it's just a hard comparison because they're from two different universes. But
no, it's not a hard comparison. Superman actually would clap Goku's cheeks. No one can, even if you want to argue against it, you're fucking dumbass because Superman is literally invincible after a certain point. He literally is invincible. Plus, for one thing, he's trained by Wonder Woman, who literally can clap the cheeks of the God of War, and Batman, who is, well, fucking Batman. So even in his martial arts, he can't outdo Goku. I mean, not Goku, but Superman.
Yeah, like I said, I never got into those arguments because anytime you compare different universes, I'm like, I just don't think there's really any way to know, so I just don't get involved. So.
Well, there is because you can base off of certain stats and the way they do their world. Like,
plus, it's hard to compare Goku. His level has changed so much throughout the show through the years. So it's like, what version of Goku are we talking about here? So.
I mean, if we take the Super Goku now with Ultra Instinct and stuff, I mean, Goku can only hold Ultra Instinct for so long. Plus, Goku can destroy planets, but literally.
But would
Superman
Goku destroy a planet?
Two universes apart.
I feel like that'd be out of character for Goku to destroy a planet.
It is out of character, but he can. He's got the power level to do
well, I
it.
won't argue with that, but I mean, heck, they could have. I mean, he could probably have destroyed a planet back when he was like, even back in the Saiyan saga, if he wanted to. But
No, he wouldn't be able to destroy the planet back in the Saiyan saga.
would Vegeta been able to destroy the planet?
Vegeta
And he was.
said he could.
They were pretty matched.
I guess, blowing up a planet is a little bit different than like moving a planet or something, because all they have to do is like erupt a core, and which is what they do.
Yeah.
They send the Ki blast down, and it drills through the ground and hits the core of the planet and causes the core to go nuclear, basically.
Yeah.
So I guess a well-placed Kamehameha at the right spot probably could destroy the Earth.
I mean, I just feel like if Piccolo can destroy the moon with one simple blast, I feel like someone as strong as Goku was in the Saiyan saga with a really strong blast could have destroyed the Earth like no problem. So
probably. Well, what it probably would be is he would aim the Kamehameha down, and it would barrel through the Earth and hit the core, and the core would start erupting, and eventually the planet would shatter apart.
Yeah.
I don't think he could just full on just blast the Earth and disintegrate it. It would be a situation with like on Frieza. The core was going crazy for 3 minutes before it would eventually.
I feel like Frieza did it in a special way because he wanted to give himself some time to, end the fight first, I think. And then
because Frieza actually stated that he didn't need to, if the planet blew up, he'd be fine. He could survive the planet explosion.
Well, I meant he'd be fine breathing in space, but which Goku cannot do. But
that was the whole point. Goku had to beat Frieza in enough time to escape before the planet exploded, because Frieza could just sit there and let the planet explode around him and just be there in space just fine.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So either way, if Goku destroyed,
they're both fictional stories. I mean, it really doesn't matter. It's not like these are real people. So that's my argument. They're TV shows, and plus writers will break their own rules sometimes. I've seen them do it many times, for the convenience of a plot or something. So. But yeah,
I'm trying to find an article about that. I'll have to ask my buddy about it.
An article about what?
Oh, the guy killing someone over who could beat who.
Yeah. That's just crazy. Did you ever see the YouTube video of those people arguing over if the Wicked Witch of the East was sisters with the Wicked Witch of the West in The Wizard of Oz? They were having a big argument over that. And they were like yelling at the top of their lungs, looking like they were ready to slap the crap out of each other. It was crazy. I was just like, wow, of all things to get that upset about.
I could have swore they were sisters.
I don't think the book or the movie tells you. I mean, I suppose they could be, but it doesn't say either way. So,
yeah.
If there was a part that said it, then I'm unaware of it. So, which, by the way, Mr. Positivity that we work with, he said he's actually never seen the end of The Wizard of Oz.
Huh.
Because I made a comment saying, "Oh, I'm like the wizard in The Wizard of Oz. I don't know. I might know how to do something, but I don't know the specifics of how it works. Because he talked about that hot air balloon, so I was making a joke about it, and he was just like, "I don't remember that part in The Wizard of Oz." I was like, "Yeah, well, it's at the very end."
According to the wiki, which of course is the wiki, you can take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Wicked Witch of the West. The Wicked Witch of the East was featured in the film The Wizard of Oz, in which she is the sister of the Wicked Witch of the West. As in the book, she is killed by Dorothy's house falling on her. The Wicked Witch of the West was not pleased with Dorothy for the death of her sister.
So in the book, they weren't sisters? Or they were sisters?
They were sisters both in the book and film, I believe.
In the movie, okay. Yeah, I guess maybe they do mention it. I don't know. I'd have to. It's been a while, but Yeah, I mentioned that part at the end, and I was just like, he was like, "Well, who's seen the end of the Wizard of Oz?" And I was like, "I've seen it countless times." I was like, "I used to watch that movie all the time when I was a kid." So,
Yep. In the books, yeah, they are sisters.
yeah, which I've read the book, but I've only read it once, so there's probably some details I forgot about. So,
The thing is, the East is the one that died, right?
yeah, the East one well, they technically both die by the end of the book, but the East gets killed by the house, and the West in the book.
Apparently, the East is portrayed as a beautiful but psychologically disabled young woman.
Yeah,
So apparently, the East was beautiful.
yeah, she's kind of an aged, beautiful woman, but and the movie doesn't go into it doesn't really show her very well in the movie. It just kind of she kind of just looks like the Wicked Witch of the West in the movie, sort of, and then she gets killed. But and then in the book, the Wicked Witch of the West looks very different than the way she does in the movie. She's actually really short in the book, and she has like an eye patch and stuff, kind of weird.
Uh-huh.
And but yeah, I think they both die the same way though, by the bucket of water where Dorothy dumps it on and then they melt. So pretty sure they both die the same way if I remember correctly. So the second book is way better in my opinion, The Marvelous Land of Oz, which Dorothy's not even in that one.
Well, I'm actually curious. I'm one of these days. I'm going to have to research. So
Yeah.
we have Wicked Witch of the West, East and West, right? We're sisters.
Yep.
The Good Witch is the Witch of the North. The Good Witch of the North. Was there a Good Witch of the South?
Yes, there is. In the book, in the movie, they fuse the South and the North into one character. Glinda, she's in the book, Glinda is the wicked or the good witch of the South, and the good witch of the North. They don't mention her name in the book, but the movie they fuse it into one character. Because in the book, the witch of the North visits Dorothy in Munchkin Land, the good witch of the North, and then by the end of the book she visits the witch of the South, and she's the one that teaches her that the slippers will take her back home, because the good witch of the North didn't know that. That's why she didn't tell her. But in the movie, they do this bull crap about, oh, she wouldn't believe me. And I'm like, what the heck? She believed you to walk all the way to the friggin' Emerald City. I think she would have believed you about the slippers.
Yeah, I don't remember much from the books or the movies because they're not my favorite. I really don't care much for the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. I like the universe from the book's perspective, but the movies are kind of a hit and miss. The original 1939 one is just okay, or it's pretty good, but then there's other versions of it that are just kind of like, So,
The play Wicked.
yeah, the one with Oz the Great Powerful is actually a prequel, which there's no prequel book. That was a completely made up story in that movie, because the entire series, there's tons of Wizard of Oz books, but every single one of them is a sequel. It
Yeah.
all starts with the very first Wizard of Oz with Dorothy going there. That's where it all starts in the book series. But
So what's the point in the other ones? Like, does Dorothy go back or?
she does eventually go back. She goes back in the third book, because the second book she is not in it at all. She's only talked about. And the second book revolves around a character named Tip, and he is the main character in that book. And he's a prisoner of a witch called Mombi, and she apparently was friends with the wizard, but the wizard didn't know like exactly what her intentions were about specifics. But yeah, she's the bad guy in that one, and he's the main character. But Dorothy comes back in the third one, and she has to, and they go, but they don't go to the land of Oz until the very end. They go to the land of Uz, because all the lands are only start with like two letters: Oz, Oz, and then Uz is Uz. And then there's also a land of Ev, Evie, the land of Ev. Yeah, they're all so. But yeah, each four quadrants has a good witch and a bad witch. So each one has a good witch. So the west, the north, south, west. So that means there's actually a good witch for the west and the east too. They just don't talk about them in the first 3 books. I don't think they come along until like the 6th book, if I remember correctly. But yeah, each quadrant has a good witch and a bad witch.
So the north and the south, their bad witches were still alive. But east and west was killed by Dorothy.
Right. The south, the Wicked Witch of the South comes along in a later book. She's been asleep. She was put asleep before the events of the first book even took place, and for like 200 years or something like that. She finally comes back awake in a later book, and she starts to cause terror. And she's even more powerful. She's the cousin of the Wicked Witch of the South, or the Wicked Witch of the East, I think. And I guess
West.
she would also be the West too, because I guess they're sisters apparently.
Yeah.
So she's even more powerful than the other two. So she was pretty hard to take down. But yeah. So.
Does it even show the Wicked Witch of the North?
I think she's talked about in a later book. There's a bunch of Wizard of Oz books. It's crazy how many of them there are. Of course, L. Frank Baum only wrote like the first 16 of them, I think. But then after he died, they were picked up and continued to be written by different authors. So, but they're all considered to be canon.
So they actually try to follow up the others.
Right. Each book is different. Is a actual continuation. It is a sequel to the later books, or the earlier books.
How many books are there?
Oh, there's a bunch. There's like over 50 of them, I think. There's quite a few. So. I have not read all of them, but I have read the first 3, and then I know specifics about the 4th, 5th, and 6th, and I think the 7th book, because I've just watched some stuff about it. But I actually haven't read those books, but I know quite a bit of the details about them because of that. So,
but one of the books, right? It was made in 1914. Is TikTok of Oz.
Yep. TikTok, he comes along in the 3rd book. Yeah, Dorothy meets TikTok. So
there's 14 books that he made.
Yeah, he wrote. Okay, I was thinking it was 16, but yeah, maybe it was 14. So,
Yeah,
but
L. Frank Baum.
L. Frank Baum. That's how you say his last name.
No. He made 14. Then Ruth Plummy Thompson made 15 through 33. Then J.R.R. Neal came in and made 34 through 36. And then in 1946, Jack. So dang. So the last book by John R. Neal was in 1942, and they didn't have a new author pick one up till 1946. And it was Jack Snow. He made 2, 3 years apart. His last one's called The Shaggy Man of Oz.
Yep. He comes along in the 5th book, I think. You meet the Shaggy Man of Oz.
Then 2 years later, they had a Rachel Cosgrove Pays. She made The Hidden Valley of Oz.
Yeah. I think she was one of the illustrators for a while, but then she wrote one of the books.
And then it wasn't picked back up until 1963, and there was 2 writers for one book.
Yeah.
Eloise Jarvis McGraw and Lauren Lynn McGraw. So I wonder how they're related. They're married or something.
Yep. I think in the early 2000s, someone wrote Toto of Oz, where Toto goes back to Oz. So, which is pretty interesting. So.
Which that was made in 1963. So quite a few years, 12 years after The Hidden Valley of Oz, they made those two together, made Merry Go Round in Oz.
Yep.
And then, so then they had the Oz Club approved publications, which the following are considered canon by the International Wizard of Oz Club, with some written by previous authors but not published by Rayleigh and Lee. So you have 41, which is Yankee and Oz by Ruth Plummy, The Enchanted Island of Oz by Ruth Palmy Thompson as well. Then The Forbidden Fountain of Oz, book number 43 by the McGraw duo. Actually, you know that name of that author. The next one. I didn't know he made one. Number 44, The Osmopolitan of Oz, was made by Dick Martin. I actually know his work. And then 45, Queen Visitors from the Marvelous Land of Oz was by L. Frank Baum.
Yep.
So he came back? Oh, no, never mind. That's one of his. Wait. That was made years ago. So maybe he were right in the amount he made.
He may have. It may have been one of those things where he wrote it and then they took it and, maybe filled in the blanks or something. Like maybe he never actually published it in his lifetime.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that was 1905.
Yeah.
Then in 1905, he wrote the Wogglebug book.
Oh, God. Yeah. The Wogglebug. He's the king of the dad jokes.
He wrote in 1913. He wrote a Little Wizard Stories of Oz.
Yeah, because there actually are some kid comic books that take place in Oz too, and it's a little unclear if they consider them to be canon or not. I'm not sure. So
those three are considered canon by the International Wizards of Oz Club.
Yeah.
So let's see here. He wrote 17 books himself.
Yeah. And those are just the Wizard of Oz books. He's wrote many other books, too, that weren't Wizard of Oz books. They were just other books.
The 48th book is The Runaway in Oz by John R. Neal in 1995. I wonder why they're out of order in some of their years. And then it says number 49 was The Wicked Witch of Oz by Rachel Cosgrove Pays in 1993.
Yep.
The 50th one that was made in 2001, The Riddell Stone of Oz, was only by Ellis Jarvis McGraw. I wonder what happened to Lauren Lynn McGraw.
Guess they didn't want to work on it.
And then, they have the wiki has these in weird orders because the next one, the 51, they have the number 51, was said to be done in 2000 because the previous one was 2001.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they numbered these. Maybe some of them were prequels to the other ones.
That is a possibility. Based on my study, I was under the understanding, if that's the correct way to format that, that each one was a sequel to the previous one. But there might be prequels in between the sequels and stuff like that. So,
yeah. So in 2000, they had The Hidden Prince of Oz by Genna Wickwar. And here's the one you were just talking about back in 2006, Toto of Oz.
Yep.
By Genna Wickwar. And then they have more than just 52 so far in the North. So others considered canon. The following are numbered through the Sovereign 60 and Supreme 70 through 5 systems, curated by Joe Bongiorno. Sorry if I'm butchering some of these names. Number 61 through 75. 61 through 75 includes books that do not take place in Oz, but can be considered part of its established multiverse within the borders of Oz. Some of these have endorsements by the Oz Club, but are not numbered by them.
Yeah, because there's other lands outside of Oz, actually. Mm-hmm. So.
The thing is, that's funny because it starts off, these next ones like by Eric Schnauer.
Mm-hmm.
It's 53, 54, and 55. Well, one of them he made in 1993, The Giant Garden of Oz. Then I guess there was The Adventures in Oz, which started in 1986 through 1992. So I guess that was a comic book series. And then I guess it got picked up at some point in 2006 and then stopped. I don't know because it has 2006 next to it as well. And then he has that number 55 was The Salt Sorcerer of Oz and Other Stories, 2002. Then after him was Edward Einhorn. And it was 1999.
Don't get me lying.
1999's Paradox in Oz, and 2005's The Living House of Oz.
Oh yeah, there's some.
We still have
stuff
Oz in the name, but I'm actually kind of curious. I might have to study more than this because there's a ton of these freaking books.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of lore within this this area. You could spend quite a bit. Like I said, I've spent a decent amount of time studying quite a bit about Oz, and even there's still like other areas and aspects about it I don't really know. So because there's quite a bit to it, but you got to think this series literally started in the early 1900s. Been around for more than 100 years. So
yeah. Then you have the next grouping of numbers. They have 58, 59, and 60 were made by Sherwood Smith as commissioned by the L. Frank Baum Family Trust.
Yeah.
Which was the Emerald Wand of Oz in 2005. Trouble Under Oz in 2006. And so far, the closest date to us right now, Sky Pirates Over Oz in 2014.
Yeah.
Then you have more by L. Frank Baum, The Magical Monarch of Mo, Dot and Tot of Maryland, The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus.
I forgot that Santa Claus is in Oz. That he comes to visit Oz.
The Enchanted Island of You, Queen Zixes of Ix, a Kidnapped Santa Claus, John Doe and the Cherub. The Twinkle Tales includes Policeman Blue Jay from 1906 to 07, so that was a little series. And then you have the Sea Fairies, Sky Island, and the collected short stories of L. Frank Baum, which that was done in 2006. So I guess somebody just took a bunch of his short stories and put together. And then I guess the finishing of the series and their numbering system was done by Ruth Plummy Thompson. 72, The Curious Cruise of Captain Santa, 1926. Santa, I love it. The 1938 King Kojo. And then they have The Wizard of Way Up and Other Wonders. Then Sisajik. I'm really butchering that. And Other Surprises. And apparently there's other Oz-related works. Each of the royal historians wrote Oz-related works, also considered canonically by many, but are not included in these number systems. Some are short stories, some are fantasy novels that contain characters or places that also appeared in Oz books. Still others are novels written sometimes years after the author's main body of Oz books. So the royal historians created Percy and the Shrinking Violet. Rachel Cosgrove Pays was the one that wrote that, I guess, in 1995. She also wrote Spots in Oz in 1997. So that's probably a list of places of Oz. Then you have non-canonical books. For a list of non-canonical Oz books, see here. Should we go to the list of non-canonical Oz books?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. So the Buckethead Enterprise of Oz / Tales of the Cowardly Lion and Friends. They also have another Toto in Oz by Chris Galbron, which was 1986. So that was before the one that we just recently read. How many of these are there? Holy freak. I don't know if I'm going to continue. That section I was just in ends with 60.
Yeah.
The next section is Tales of the Cowardly Lion and Friends bundles.
Lost my friggin' pillow.
And that has 38 books in that series. Emerald City Press has 16. The Ozian Seahorse Press has 5. Then there's Palo Verde Emeralds has 1, 2, 3, 4 books. The Whiz Kids of Oz has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. For some reason they put a number on those. And then the Random House, a brand new Oz Adventure series, has 5. Which all these were coming out and dang. So the first 4 out of that 5 were all done in 1985, and then the last one was 1986. Then you have 2 books in the Patchwork Press, 4 books, which is the final grouping, in Hungry Tiger Press.
Yeah.
God, there's way too many freaking books in this world.
Jeez.
You good?
I don't want to know what that was I was choking on, but that sounded really dirty. Some guy came in the room. My eyes were closed. I don't know what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's just 75 in their cells that are considered canon.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you have the non-canonical books. So does that mean they're non-canon?
I guess so. I couldn't remember if there were books that were considered non-canon or not, but I guess there is, yeah. But yeah, because like after L. Frank Baum died, I think his kids had control over the series for a while, but if I'm not mistaken, I think they sold it to people, and now the Oz Club they're the ones that kind of decide which ones are canon or not, and I'm not sure how they debate all that.
So the meaning of non-canonical in English means not part of a set of works or subjects that are generally agreed to be good, important, and worth studying.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a loose definition there. I would consider anything non-canon would be something that technically does take place in the universe.
Well, non-canon is different. I think is different than non-canonical.
You can kind of look at it as more of a what if story, like, well, what if this happened, but it didn't actually happen technically. But I mean, so that's kind of one way to look at it. So
yeah, it's primarily the ruling party viewed non-canonical literature with suspicion.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily not canon, but at the same time,
yeah. And it can depend probably on the person. Some individuals will make up their own canon and non-canon to stuff. So
yeah, I mean it's basically not included with a canon or group of rules, not belonging to the canon of scripture.
Yeah.
So, but I guess if that's the case, then there is a ton of what's considered non-canonical books. There's a ton of
them. Yeah, another interesting thing about the Land of Oz is it actually is not like, because most of the time when you have these fantasy stories and stuff like that, it's they usually always have that cliche where they always somehow magically like go to it usually always takes place in another dimension or something, like in Narnia, like where she goes through the wardrobe, and it's not like taking place on Earth. It's like in a different alternative land of some kind, magical dimension, whatever you want to call it. And I think like Harry Potter kind of does the same thing, and stuff like that. But the interesting thing about Oz is it actually does take place on Earth. It takes place far, far to the south of like, I guess it doesn't really say exactly where it takes place, but it seems to. It's, if you read the books carefully, it actually takes place on Earth. When Dorothy's family is visiting Australia, she was actually able to go to Oz on a ship, so she like literally sails there. So
Well, Harry Potter is still on Earth. They just use magic to keep themselves hidden.
oh, is that what it is? Is it like invisible or something? I don't know enough about Harry Potter, so I don't know.
The train rail to Hogwarts, they use magic to conceal the platform 9 3/4.
Yeah.
And that's the only railway that goes to Hogwarts.
Yeah.
They're in Scotland. It's hidden off in this mountain of Scotland, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's in our world.
You just can't see it. Yeah.
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 But Oz is basically a hidden continent.
Yeah, sort of. So
how did a tornado throw a house?
well, that's the part where you have to kind of use your imagination. Trust me, the second book has even crazier things happen than a tornado carrying a house. Actually, it was a cyclone that carried the house over to Oz, and stayed in. Somehow it stayed intact. The wood didn't tear apart. But yeah, there's even crazier things that happen in the second book. But yeah, I mean, you have to remember these books were originally wrote for kids. So
yeah. Yeah, there's quite a few worlds that actually have stories that actually happen in our world, or a version of our world.
Yeah.
Because like you take, most things like Godzilla, Pacific Rim, and stuff like that. That's in a version of our world.
Right. Well, I wasn't talking about that kind of stuff. I was just talking about like those types, because there's a lot of those types of stories where they always go to like some magical land of some kind, some fantasy land. So, where it starts off in the regular world and then they leave to go to a fantasy land in some way. So,
yeah, like either a fantasy world, actual Earth, or a alternate version of our world.
Yeah.
That's how things work.
Which technically Oz still takes place within that type of genre, technically, because she does start off in the regular, like the world we would be familiar with, but she goes to Oz, which is a fantasy land. The only difference is Oz actually is on the Earth, unlike with like the situation with like Narnia. So,
but how does it not know? How does the world not know about Oz then? I'm kind of curious.
Well, you have to remember this was written in the early 1900s. There's probably a lot of stuff that L. Frank Baum either didn't think about, and there was probably some things he didn't know about during that time.
True. I guess later works would be
and then later on, I guess they just rolled with it. So,
I mean, the world is huge, so
yeah, maybe Oz is magically has maybe it's sort of like the North Pole, where because sometimes I've heard some stories explain like the reason why people haven't found Santa's workshop yet is because it has some kind of invisible bubble or something around it that magically conceals it, so where people can't see it unless they want you to see it. So maybe it's something like that. So
like Harry Potter's world, it's
yeah,
hidden by magic or something.
Right.
I mean, Yeah, considering Skull Island and Kong is hidden by massive storms. This land with these giant monsters is on Earth. No one knows about it until they go through this storm and get fucked.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it kind of compares those different stories, like where sometimes they go to the fantasy area, and then there's stories where the fantasy comes to them. So kind of thing.
That's kind of more like that's more in the sci-fi genre. They do the world into them. Like, of course, Pacific Rim, it's another world that's opening up through the ocean. The creatures swim out of it. Or sent through the portal and come to our world to attack us and try to destroy it.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I love books. Books are very intriguing.
Yep.
I love stories in general, for the most part. Or heck, actually, we forgot one.
Which one is that?
That one scenario. Sometimes they're in a galaxy far, far away. Which, I mean, that falls under Aliens, Predator.
Yeah. That would just be an example of just a sci-fi / fantasy story. Yeah. It's not like anyone's really going there or they're coming to us. It's just kind of like this exists but we don't know about it kind of thing. So, yeah. Yeah.
Well, in Aliens, they go to it. Same with Predator.
Yeah, but that would all take place in that universe, though. So it doesn't apply to our situation.
The lands they think there's other universes. They're just actually in a galaxy far, far away. They just don't know about that.
Yeah. It's kind of like in the second Oz book is actually kind of like that too, where really the whole story is just people that all live in Oz. There's literally no one from like our areas go there, or they don't come to us, and stuff like that. It all just takes place in that area. So with those characters. So
yeah.
And so that would be an example of that kind of story too. So it's not always just, like that with the Oz books where someone's going there to visit or whatever. Oh, man.
Do they ever change the Cowardly Lion's name since he got his courage?
I don't think so. I think they still just always refer to him as the Cowardly Lion. So.
But the man got his courage. That's kind of a dick move. Man bust his hump to get the courage.
Admittedly, he's not talked about a ton in some of the later, or at least not in the books I've read or are familiar with. It may come, maybe there's another book down the line where he's mentioned heavily again, but yeah, he's not mentioned that heavily in the next couple of sequels after the first one.
Well, heck, because like in the non-canonical list, there's a whole series of the Cowardly Lion and Friends.
Yeah.
Like
they focus more on the Hungry Tiger in the third book, and then of course the Scarecrow, he still stays like a pretty like heavy character. He's a big character in the second book, the third book, the fourth book, like all of them, like the next several sequels. He's like one of the main characters. So I guess L. Frank Baum liked his character or something. So
maybe. But what happens to the Tin Man?
Huh?
Where's the Tin
Man? He comes back in the third one. So his name is Nick Chopper. So that's what, in the books his name is Nick Chopper, but they still refer to him as the Tin Woodman. But yeah, he stays good friends with like the Scarecrow. They I think at one point, because they go through different stages, the Scarecrow eventually takes over as ruler of Oz after the Wizard of Oz leaves. But in the third book, Princess Ozma, she comes back and takes her rightful place because her dad was the king before the Wizard of Oz took over. That's a whole nother side story. but she takes her place as ruler, and she makes the Scarecrow one of her main like top general like leaders, and she also makes the Tin Woodmen one of the general leaders as well, and Dorothy becomes one of the leaders. So,
So him
because
finally
Dorothy and in the fourth book, Dorothy and Ozma, Princess Ozma, become like best friends, and so she there's constantly like sequels books where Dorothy just keeps coming back and mostly just to visit Ozma. But of course, the situation takes place where they have some kind of confrontation that happens. So
Yeah. I have never seen a book series so freaking huge.
Even in I think it was the fifth book or the sixth book, I can't remember which one. The Wizard of Oz, believe it or not, actually comes back in one of the later books, and he becomes one of the leaders in Oz. But he's not the top leader like Ozma is. She stays the top leader, but she makes him one of the main leaders. So
she makes the guy who kicked out her daddy.
Well, he didn't kick out her dad. Apparently, something happened with her dad. The book doesn't do a very good job of explaining it, but Ozma tries to explain it. Where there was actually a short period of time where the land of Oz or Emerald City did not have a leader. So, but the leader always carried the name Oz. That was, if it was a girl, it was always Ozma. If it was a guy, his name was Oz. And so he said his hot air balloon landed in this area, and so when it did, they thought it was some kind of prophecy fulfillment of some kind and just made him the ruler, and he just kind of went along with it because he heard about the Wicked Witch of the West and he was scared of her. So he just went along with this in hopes that it would maybe protect him from the Wicked Witch of the West, and so he just stayed the leader. And then he said it was many years later when Dorothy finally showed up, and he thought this might be his ticket out of here, so he took it. So yeah, but yeah, it's a little. She doesn't really explain what happens to her dad. I guess he just dies, so of old age or something. I don't know. So, and then no one was there to take the ruling because Ozma was kidnapped. But I won't go into more details than that, just in case you want to read the second book. The second book explains that part. So.
I'm probably not, because
if someone's listening that might want to read it or at least maybe do their own study on it, then that's the foundation to get you started with some of the characters. But of course, it goes way more deeper than that if you actually read the books or study it out for yourself. So,
yeah, I think for me, I'd probably have to study it out, like listen to someone who's already went through it on like YouTube or something, because I have to finish a book series if I start one, and that's way.
That's probably why I stopped reading after book 3, and I just kind of switched over to just kind of studying the books, because I was like, am I really going to sit here and read every single one of these books? I really don't want to, And so I just that's when I cut myself off, and I was like, I think I'm just going to study the book series instead. So, but yeah, I've technically only read the first 3. So,
like, you would years off your life to read every fucking book.
Yeah. If I did read a lot, I would have to skip around a little bit or something. I will admit, though, the Oz universe, like the universe of Oz, would make a great setting for like an RPG. I was like, this would be awesome. Like you could pick what land you want to be from, and you could create your own character and stuff like that. And then different things you could interact with. You could explore all the different lands and so go over to land of the land of Ev, and the land of Oz, and all the different 4 quadrants and stuff. I was like, that would be interesting. So,
yeah, I mean, I could easily learn the story and all the lore and create a tabletop out of it.
Yeah, it would really make a good RPG setting for sure. But, yep.
I've just been waiting for them knowing all these books, and I'm going to be waiting for them to do like a massive TV series.
I could see that. Now they've played around with it always seems like every time they do stuff with Oz in modern day times, they always just kind of play around with Oz a little bit. They never actually directly just make the story. It's kind of like back in 2013, I think it was, when they made that prequel, which really had nothing to do with the book series. And then before I think they made that TV show or something on HBO or something, but that was really more like weird interpretations of Oz. It wasn't really about the book series. And so they keep doing stuff like that instead of just directly making something actually based on the book series. So,
Which a book series with that much lore would be pretty easy to
yeah, I mean, uh, you could literally, like, if you, like you said, if they made a show out of it, I mean, you would have a show that'd go on forever if you want, as long as people kept watching. So
Yeah,
it would definitely last a long time.
I'm kind of curious how many people would actually watch a series of the show for Oz.
For me, it would kind of depend on how they did it, but I would definitely be intrigued if they did that. So
Just in the last Oz book, from what I could see in the dates, was 2014.
yeah,
So I mean, it's not been that relevant for years now.
most Oz fans don't like the Oz the Great and Powerful prequel movie. Actually, quite a few people don't like that movie. Um, they usually pick it trash on it. But the interesting thing is I actually kind of like that movie. Actually, thought it was pretty entertaining. Now, I don't really consider it to be an Oz like thing. It's, to me, it's more like it's a movie that's based off the Land of Oz. That's kind of the way I view it. But movie wise, if you forget about Oz for a minute and just watch the movie, like, I actually think it's pretty good. So,
Well, the thing is, like, they wanted to make a movie about the Wizard of Oz, but there's not really much to go on about him before Oz.
yeah.
So you kind of just give your own interpretation. There's actually really not much about him once he got there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's kind of a coward.
Yeah. Well, he's like that in the book too. So somewhere over the rainbow, way up high.
No.
Man, I am such a good singer. I need to go on America's Got Talent. I'd bring home I get the golden buzzer.
Sure.
Yep. Say in the comments if I would get the golden buzzer or not. I know everybody's going to say yes.
Helps you sleep at night, buddy.
I'm just being silly. Yeah, I know I'm not that great of a singer. Plus, I wasn't really trying to sing that song that good anyway. I can sing a little better than that, but not by much. But yeah. Anyway, we're almost out of time. What?
I'm not really a good singer anymore after I ruptured my vocal cord.
Well, you need to stop doing that.
Well, I haven't done it since I first done it.
I had a weird dream. Well, maybe I shouldn't say this on the podcast.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're almost out of time, so we're gonna probably close things out here. So.
Yeah. All right. Well,
it does look like YouTube's getting a bit more interaction, at least in terms of views, and maybe an extra. I think there was an extra subscriber on there that I didn't see before.
maybe.
So, if you're part of the listener on the YouTube side, then yeah, definitely leave some comments and let us know about what you think about whatever. So, and then yeah.
I mean, like I've said before, if you say something in the comments that's intriguing to us, we're probably talking about it in the podcast.
Yeah.
At least a little bit of it. So I guess just, the basic closing statements, do your diligence, subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and go over to the brand new Instagram, which is what again?
It's see if I can remember it. barf_city_podcast. I think if you just type in Barf City, it's probably, I think it's like one of the first ones that pop up. So.
Well, I remember it. I just wanted
just look for the picture of the dinosaur. That's the right one.
The mutated dinosaur.
Yeah, just look for the picture of that, and it should say Barf City on top. So just that one.
Well, I hope everyone has a good time, and see you in the next one.
Yep.
Bye.